Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist of Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I am joined today in studio by Teresa Caro. She is the founder of Liminal.
Yes, happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so tell us, Liminal is not something that somebody's going to just know. So what does Liminal do?
So Liminal, if you break down the word, there's a word called liminal.
Okay.
And if your listeners haven't heard the word liminal yet, I guarantee the week will not end before they hear it again. It's become a very trendy word.
Okay.
It means between and betwixt. And if this was an archaeological podcast, we go into the whole concept of liminal, but suffice it to say, as we go through our careers, as businesses mature, we usually end up in this between state. So I am the specialist that helps executives and teams sort of travel through that between state, become unstuck, and get to the other side.
I love that. For a brief period of time, I've had lots of careers. And so in one of them, I was doing mostly operational work. And I would talk about how your company's a baby and whatever, and it gets to teenage years,
yes,
the awkward in between.
Yes.
It's like, so does it ever move out of the house or not? Right?
Exactly.
So and then finally to make it mature. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So give me a little bit about your background. So how did you get to here?
How did I get here?
Yeah.
That's my
how did you get to here?
Story to tell.
All right, nice.
Because I went through my own liminal state. So people might know me as someone who's been in Atlanta for many years, decades, more decades than I care to admit.
Okay.
And I have been both on the agency side as an advertising agency leader, as well on the marketing side in different forms and fashion, chief marketing officer for a credit card company and all of that.
Okay.
I, like you, strategist, love strategy.
Yeah.
So, and also from a strategist perspective, got the reputation of being a transformational leader. So I was typically hired to come in and move a team or an organization from point A to point B in some kind of transformational kind of state, which never is easy.
Right, yeah.
Right? So I did that, and I had, in the final parts of this first phase of my career, I went through a series of organizations, different titles, different salaries, different opportunities to make change, and realized that I got very good at creating and optimizing high-performing teams, to the point that it was really one of those things to just do it for one company was very limiting.
Yeah.
And I can't say last year anymore because it's now 2024.
24.
So in 2022, I had the opportunity, as a lot of us do with our careers, to pause and reflect and think about, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
What gives me joy? How can I give back to the world? And through a lot of people helping me and supporting me and answering all my numerous questions, I finally realized being an executive coach for executives,
Yeah.
and for teams and for cohorts was something that really could be good at. And liminal is a word that I was introduced to in 2011. Myself and another gentleman from an agency co-wrote a book called Liminal, Customers in Transition.
Nice.
And it was called Liminal. So I've always been fascinated with the word. Liminal was born, and here I am with you.
Nice. All right. And so, because what's interesting, what I love about the marketing space is marketing is often the harbinger of change,
Yes.
or the one that comes in when those kinds of things are happening. So it gives you a seat at the table to start having some of those conversations, from your earlier career, right? Of like how that works. So talk to me a little bit about, so if we think about marketing in particular.
Okay.
So how a marketing team, because I believe, it's a strong word, but the marketing team is the team, if crafted well, if done well, that can really drive, like we do so many companies that do M&A, and the marketing team is like the first in. Like they're the SEAL team, right?
Yes.
Like getting everything set up. So what are some of the keys to setting up a good marketing team that can drive that kind of innovative change?
I love that you said crafted well. So one of the secrets to my success when I would come into these organizations is I would follow an approach.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the 90-day plan or
Right.
what have you.
Yeah.
And the first is, what was my mandate? What was the mandate and the purpose? We love talking about the word purpose of the team.
Yeah.
How is that team being measured for success?
Right.
Two key areas. Then you start looking at people, process, plumbing. And you start figuring...
Plumbing. That's a new one. Okay, I like it.
Well, you got to have the 3 Ps,
Okay, I got
right?
it, yeah.
People,
Well, that's a new P for me. So, yeah, I like it.
Meaning technology, platforms, all of those things. You have
I may fully steal that, by the way.
Oh, please do, because trust me, it was stolen.
I like that, yeah.
Yes. So you have people, process, and plumbing, and you start assessing the situation. Well, where I was different than many others is you have a lot of consultancies come in and they talk about process and plumbing. You don't talk about the human element, the people.
Right.
And that's getting the right people in the right seats, doing the right things, rewarded in the right way, and even before rewarded, measured in the right way. Well, you do that, you do all of that, and you discover there's certain people that just got plopped here and weren't performing well. Well, they're not in their happy place.
Right.
Right? I'm one of my great examples is there was a particular person, she was just struggling in the role that she was. Well, it was a very operational role and organized, and structured, nothing new. This goes to the whole concept of agile and resiliency. And she was the epitome of that. So I took her and put her in my vision-focused group. And she was the one that made sure we knew what was coming down the path. And we were the leaders in that thinking. And first, and all the great things in terms of, you talk about being known.
Yeah.
She was critical. But that's how you start creating the right team to be what you just described, to be at the forefront.
Yeah, I talk about patchwork quilt. So building a team is not, we talk about like roles and responsibilities and job titles and job descriptions and things. And Cynthia, my managing partner, is probably going to yell at me after this, but because you set it up that way. But then as you start to look at your organization, you're like, well, I need someone who has these skills, but they also need to have this other thing because we're missing it, right? There's this gap in the way the person thinks or whatever, right? To build a patchwork quilt. Companies are not job titles and roles. They're this kind of someone who thinks forward, someone who thinks back, because you have to have all of those things or you can't build something healthy.
And I would agree. We could have a whole nother podcast about leveraged model and titles and tiering, roles and responsibilities, being measured from hard skills, soft skills. All of those things need to be taken into consideration as you create a high-performing team.
Yeah, what's interesting in our space is the companies that we're working with, because we do a lot of B2B and we do a lot of what we call messy companies. So if I get a call from a company and they're like, really messy, things are changing, yada, 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 I'm like, you're perfect. We love you. Like that's exactly where we live. But what you said a second ago is an important thing to understand is many times the person who's sitting in that marketing seat may not know a thing about marketing.
Yes.
They were like the best salesperson or whatever. And so now they're being given an incredibly important part of the organization, which in B2B land, people don't always think of marketing the right way.
Right.
I think it's kind of an afterthought. And like, do we really have to do it? Like, we're a B2B company. And it's like, yeah, it's far more important for you, actually. So in that space, so what's some advice for companies that are considering that? Like, how do you set it up such that it's going to be successful? Because if that person's not in the right seat, like, building that marketing department in a way that it's going to be resilient, what are some tricks maybe that you could give them in that space?
So there's a lot of ways. So what you just gave, that whole scenario, messy organization, leader that didn't necessarily come from marketing. There is a lot to unpack there. And then how do you even come up with a resilient organization who's agile, who can adapt to change? There's a lot there. So let's start at the top, and then you tell me where you want to go from there.
Yeah, so the thing with the marketing is that, because you talk about trust, like when that's, so establishing that trust because you've put somebody in that place, well, they may not even trust their own skills. So how you start to like get that person to either surround themselves with the right things or, getting them to skill up or maybe move over. What's your approach? Is there like an assessment you do? Like, how does that kind of fit in that space?
Well, I love that you use trust and actually trusting a leader that doesn't come from the marketing space. Can you imagine being a marketer and being hired by this woman or man who has no marketing experience? So let's start with the word trust. There are two definitions of trust. There is the mind trust. Can this person, can she do the job?
Right.
right? Does she have the skill set? Is she dependable? It's very data-driven, very factual. And then there's the heart-based trust.
Yeah.
Do I believe I can talk to this person? Do I believe this person is going to support me? Do I believe this person is going to be open to my ideas and supportive of my ideas? Is this person going to help me do better? That is vulnerability-based trust. And someday you and I are going to figure out how to get Brene Brown, Patrick Lencioni, and Scott Galloway in our room, and we're going to have a discussion around their perception.
Hilarious. We rewatched. I'd seen it before, the Brene Brown thing on Netflix or whatever, and I was having a difficult conversation with somebody, and I was like, I'm going to use a Brene Brown thing. The story I'm telling myself right now is...
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And that's so perfect. Like, I am an authorized partner of the five behaviors, which is Patrick Lencioni's The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team that Wiley created, right? And they talk a lot about vulnerability-based trust. And I really want to get them in a room because there are different levels of vulnerability-based trust, which I share that because right now your listeners are rolling their eyes going, I don't want to share my emotions.
Well, and it's not
deepest fears.
Always appropriate, like in the business world, right? Like you're like, I'm going to do this thing. And there's no crying at work. And there's like, but if there's trust, there's crying, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Which is why Patrick, especially Patrick and Brene, need to really get together in a room because Patrick would say, you got to go all the way. And Brene's like, hold on.
Yeah.
Because you can actually break trust.
Yeah.
If I come into you and say, Eric, I really don't know how to build my business, and I really don't know where the next dollar is. Like the entire team is going to say, "Who is this person?" Right?
Yeah.
So bringing it back to how do you create a resilient team with this leader? So this leader, first off, okay, they selected a leader because he or she is an amazing salesperson. They know the product. They know the customer needs.
Right.
They know the message. Someone believes that this person has the fundamental foundation. They can define the vision. Hopefully they or someone they surround them with has high emotional intelligence and they know how to problem solve. Those are the fundamental 3 aspects of what makes a great leader.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
But now that leader needs to surround themselves with experts, right? And how do you create that resilient team? Well, you start with that person or person and persons, because we're going to create a team here. So you collect, all the functional things. You got to have a writer and a designer and all those kind of fun things. Those are the functional aspects of building a great team. But there's also those nuanced things, the soft skills that we like talking about. You need a team that enjoys change, embraces change, maybe craves change. Right?
Is it a team or individuals within the team?
Well, and that's what so a resilient, there are individuals and then there's the team together.
Right.
And that's the magic thing is individually you can bring on people who love change, people who bounce back. In the agency world and the entrepreneurial world, like we got to learn how to bounce back when a failed RFP or a client that shoots down a creative idea. Learning, that craving for learning, and then communication and supporting one another. Individually, that's who we need to find. The leader, though, needs to bring it all together.
Yeah.
So if you come back to communication and supporting and problem solving, that leader needs to empower, needs to teach the team how to fish.
So, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm not going to conflict. What I'm going to ask you is it's so tough.
Yes.
And we work in a lot of, and I'm just going to say it, primarily like middle-aged white guy spaces. You know, it's like insurance companies that are being merged together, fintech companies, you know, whatever. So how do you get them to cry? What do you do to make them cry? Like you got to get them in a room and be like, come on, man. Like literally we got to break this wall down. Like are there some tips and techniques or is it just like?
Well, the first thing is the person needs to actually admit, right, that there is an opportunity. If as you said, the middle-aged white guy is refusing to admit that they need to change and they need help, they need to ask help to change, then there's really not much we can do. Coaches have a way of saying that not everybody needs or wants coaching, and not everybody needs or wants you. There's a great fit for everyone. So let's make the assumption that someone wants to change. They know they have.
So you have to know when to walk away.
Well,
the first one.
Coaches?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And when to be tenacious, too.
Yeah, right.
A lot of my clients listening to this podcast right now go, oh, no, Teresa's tenacious.
Yeah.
She will not walk away from you if she sees an opportunity. It's part of the reason why they hire me.
Yeah.
I am a tough love coach.
Right.
That said, so we've gone through the tough love. This leader has realized that their EQ is not what it needs to be. Or their problem, how many parents actually problem solve for their kids when really we should be teaching our kids how to problem solve? Same from a leader. So there's any number of things that this person believes that needs to change. And I will tell you, what they believe needs to change isn't ultimately what actually needs to change. That's the magic of where coaching comes in.
Yeah, getting to the core.
Getting to the core.
Yeah.
Getting to the core. And so you do that, and then there's steps in the process. It's figuring out, I'm working with someone right now, just mapping it back from accountability. Why can't we get results? It's because we can't hold ourselves accountable. Can't make commitments. You and I will talk about conflict at some point, and then ultimately comes back to trust, which comes back to your point of, okay, you're in this messy B2B organization where cousin George or the head of sales has been head of marketing, and the entire team is like, ooh, I don't know if I can trust this person. So really, that's where I like to start with organizations. It's a hard place to start. It's a tough pill to swallow, but that's where I like to start.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, we're going to go to a commercial break, and when we get back, we'll unpack a little more, get into that, okay, now we have trust, because I think the next level is conflict, right? Mm-hmm. People hate conflict. Yes. I love conflict and change. All right, we'll be back in just a second. You're listening to The Claw, the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I'm Eric Holtzcott, Chief Strategist at Liger, and I'm talking today with Teresa Caro with Liminal.
The Claw podcast is brought to you by Liger. Liger is a hybrid marketing firm combining a brand strategy consultancy and a production house that offers the full range of content and creative services. We can be your entire marketing department or your entire marketing department's favorite people to work with. We save the world from boring, broken marketing by putting businesses in brand therapy so they can express their most authentic, memorable selves. And then we share their story so they can be known. For more information, visit ligerpartners.com and follow us on our social media platforms.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzcott, Chief Strategist at Liger. I am joined today in the studio by Teresa Caro. She is with Liminal. She's the founder of Liminal. And so it's a new name, a new word that you're going to hear. Liminal, at least you're going to hear multiple times. Mm-hmm. So as we came into the commercial break, we started to talk about what's actually one of my more favorite things is conflict. I do like conflict if it's healthy conflict, right? Because it means you're getting, like, something's happening. If people are just agreeing, then you're maybe not getting the best. You're not getting something that's, and I tend to think that I'm right and certain of myself, but I'm also okay for someone to talk me out of it. But because of the way I present it, people don't challenge me as often as I'd like them to. Like, they don't get that they could, right? So, and thinking about that, so how do you leverage conflict in a creative way? Like, what's the approach that you would
Well, first, I'd love to explore what you said. So I'm going to look in the camera for a moment.
Okay.
And ask your audience to pause for a moment and reflect on what are you feeling when you hear the word conflict? Because Eric loves conflict. Me, I know.
Oh, you don't?
As soon as I hear the word conflict, I get a pit in my stomach. I want to shut down. Depending on what kind of conflict it is, I just start thinking, make it go away, make it stop. I just want to get done. That is when I think of the word conflict, that is my issue. Now, the second piece of what you said is really important. If we have vulnerability-based trust, the people in the room know we have each other's back. And I like to say a Monopoly reference of, if you do not have vulnerability-based trust, do not pass go, do not collect $200, start over again, get back to there. So for the purposes of this conversation, let's assume that vulnerability-based trust is there. we trust if we have something that is different or we disagree, that we all have each other's best interest in mind. So that's where it all starts on that. The second thing, second or third thing you said in there too is you like conflict. You feel confident in yourself. You know how to convey your opinions. There are lots of different personalities in there. So if the first step in this four-legged stool, and let's see if I remember all four legs, so hold me accountable. First leg is vulnerability-based trust. The second is the construct of the meeting itself. Let's stay focused on the problem. This is not a personal kind of thing. This is us staying focused on the problem. It is understanding who's in the room. So if you have different people in the room, you and I are quite assertive. I get the sense that we are fine and comfortable with a bunch of people around us. There are other people, I guarantee, in your organization that the whole idea of getting in a room with 20 people and brainstorming, you might as well like put needles in their eyes, right? So it's understanding who's in the room and creating different scenarios of how to stay focused on the problem, how to keep it positive and not personal, and how to make sure all voices are heard. So 2 exercises I can suggest to your audience. One is, I like this and. So
that's such a great way. There's a guy that works with us and he'll say my idea and then he's like, and he disagrees. But he said and, so it's an improv move, right?
Well, and it could be disagreeing.
He does a good job of disagreeing with me by saying and.
Exactly. But I always love the example of, a long time ago, one of the agencies I was with, picture, if you will, the world is shut down. All of us are full of anxiety. Because that's also the fun thing. You inject anxiety into the whole mixture, and people's underlying behaviors start coming back. So the world's shut down. My team is set up for success. So instead of worrying about their jobs, they're worrying about the client, and they're worrying about the client's guests. In this case, it was a senior living center. And she's reaching out to me, the head of creative, the head of client engagement, saying, we need to worry about those guests. These are senior people shut in their rooms by themselves. And so brainstorming ensued. Well, one was, and what it ended up being, was a radio station. Well, can you imagine me hyper vigilant, like, really? And so it's not even just I don't like the idea. It could be that I am uncomfortable with the idea. But instead of saying that'll never work, the client will never pay for it, we don't have the people, the technology will take forever, we did, and we didn't even do it purposely. It was a lot of yes and. It was, I love this idea of a radio station, and maybe we can find a platform that already has the rights to the music, that already has the technology in place, that can probably give us best practices. And we just kept building.
So what I want to tell you right now is that you have just hit a string in my heart that if everyone understood when they were working with me, that's how I see the world. When you started counting off your fingers, right? All of that gives me agita. When somebody's like, well, we can't do it because of this, and we can't do it because of this, and we can't do it. And it just diminishes me in a way that, and then I get into this really bad place. But then the second way you presented it, I'm like, cool. We're trying to figure out how to make this work, right?
Exactly.
And I will get to the end of it and be like, well, we could get it to work that way, but that's a lot of stuff, right? So that's very interesting because that is the thing. Like when people start, the negative talk for me is just like, no, I want to talk about how we could do it. Like I get it. I get it would be hard, but there's got to be a way. Right. So that's pretty cool.
And that's how I love to define conflict. Conflict comes to the table with a negative connotation.
Yes. Right? See, and in my opinion with conflict, the way I look at conflict is I love resolution. I don't really love conflict. I love resolution. So if we are having a conversation about something, and I tell people, something's wrong and the company is not working the way that it should, whatever, it's like, we are not here to make people suffer. Like we didn't build this in a way, like we're not here to torture anyone or whatever. So if it's not working, this was our best, worst idea. It's our best, worst idea. What else do you have, right? And then that isn't always fair to them because I'm a fast thinker. Like I should have been in an emergency room or something, and they need time to think or whatever. But if they can come to me with it would work if we did this and this and this. I may then in my own brain go, yeah, that sounds like a lot of work, right? But it is just a different framing of it. So I really like that.
And that's how we ultimately get to innovation.
Yeah.
And I would say conflict is not consensus. That's an important piece
100%.
of what you said. And it's important for your listeners to also understand. There might be resolution.
But that's not yes.
But one of the steps in the construct of this meeting is listing out all the things you agree with, listing all the things that you disagree with, and coming up with actionable next steps. In my mind, I didn't agree with the radio station. I didn't think it would work. But my actionable next step was to work with the head of technology to figure out how could it work? And you know what? It went out and worked. We named the award. We won it.
Nice.
And even more importantly, Dolly Parton showed up on it. It was, so
that's awesome.
Awards aside, Dolly Parton.
Yeah, April, my wife, loves Dolly Parton.
Yes.
That's her, yeah.
So it was healthy conflict, which is what you called it before.
And we use EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system. And so we do L10s. And so it's, issue, discuss, and then resolution. And you end up in that discuss resolution. And there's a lot of negative talk comes out in that space. And I know it's my problem, but like I want to resolve it. Like I want to move forward, but I don't want to move forward because we just decided we couldn't do it. Right. Yeah. And so I have to figure out how to make that twist a little bit.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought up EOS. EOS is an amazing framework.
Right.
The challenge with the EOS is the human element of it.
Yeah.
I'll work with companies and businesses that can't move themselves forward. They are much better in terms of the structure of the organization and planning and objectives. But if they can't hold each other accountable jointly as a team, because they can't commit, because they can't have conflict, because they don't ultimately trust one another, the framework
doesn't work.
Yeah. And I hesitate to say it doesn't work because EOS is such a great organization, but you need to address the human element, which is why having an executive coach as a partner to the EOS facilitator is so important.
Yeah, very cool. I've got to figure out how to convert what you just said into how to talk to Eric. So,
well, you and I can work on that. Right?
Well, but meaning but it's not. It's just a language thing because also within our company is very process oriented, which means we get a lot of work done. But I am the guy who's like but how could we do it? I got this entrepreneurial nature in me, and I do have good people that help to filter that, right? But then when we get into the conversation, we're really talking about it. I want to have the conversation you just had,
right?
Okay, yeah, I know it's a crazy idea, but it could work, right? There's a chance.
Right. Well, and this goes back to the question you had about building resilient teams.
Yeah.
Encouraging experimentation.
Yeah.
Now, the key part of encouraging experimentation as part of a resilient team is making sure that your team can do the foundational pieces, the pieces that they know they will hit their numbers, they'll hit their clients' numbers, all that kind of stuff. As long as that is being taken care of, sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, agency style. And then you have that middle piece, which are the things you need to be doing. It's that coming wave. It's generative AI. How do we get ahead of that?
Right.
And then the top part is the experimentation. It's you coming in, creating a safe space, knowing that, and them trusting you that you're not going to debunk their ability to get the foundation in place, their ability to get the things they know that are coming and they got to spend every spare time doing it, that you are creating a safe space for experimentation, the what if we could. Because, oh, by the way, the what if we could is that next thing after generative AI.
Well, and what's interesting about it is thinking about it from the perspective, what happens, because I owned a research company for a period of time and done all these discovery sessions, and we would no idea is a bad idea, put them all on the board, because an idea that when you originally put it on the board, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible idea, turned into something that was amazingly good, right? Like we were doing a project with an employee benefits company, and one of the people, we were talking about experiences that people don't typically do, and she brought up going to a gun range. And everybody was like, and I had people in the room like, oh, whatever, and I was like, no, we're going to put it on the board, right?
Right.
And what it ended up doing is they were able to use that employee benefits for things people had never done before. It like turned into this like something that you want to do that you just don't have the money or access to do it. So, but it was from that initial idea. So you never know where it's going to go. I'm always kind of excited about where it's going to go. So anyway, so we're getting close to the end, sadly, but I'm navigating change with agility. So how do we navigate that change? So we've decided we're going to change,
Great.
which is Eric's favorite thing. How are we going to do that in a way that doesn't drive Eric crazy? Because like we're still working on it a year later.
And that's the summation of everything that we talked about in our podcast video today is, in order to navigate change, you need to put it all together. That vulnerability-based trust, how to have constructive conflict conversations, how to commit to one another, how to hold each other accountable, and then generate the results. That's number one. The whole vulnerability-based trust and how to get there, that's a whole nother session, because there's probably things you can't go to change if there's something going on in the organization that's causing...
Or the individual.
Well, yeah.
People bring a lot of baggage, right?
People bring a lot of baggage.
Yeah, either
That
something from early life or from previous employers or, non-belief systems. But people who... they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for something, and they don't know that they're not until they take the risk to do it, and then they realize they don't. You know, because my attitude is, I'm always much angrier when somebody has not done something than if they've tried and they failed. I'd rather that you tried a thing and it didn't work than to have just sat in a space of nothing, right?
And everything you just shared there, this is, there's a whole thing around mental fitness and what your brain is telling you versus your ability to control your brain.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then the more anxious you are, the more you go to that primal, like, unsafe.
Yeah, and you judge yourself, you judge others, and a lot of those are lies. There's some stat out there about, as we think throughout the day, we have thousands and thousands of thoughts, and 70+% are negative thoughts as we judge ourselves, as we judge others, and as we judge circumstances. So that's another piece of what I do, is as I work backwards, purpose. From a change perspective, what is the purpose of your organization? And make sure that everybody is bought into that purpose. So as you come up with the ideas, people understand, oh, that's the purpose of our organization. That's the vision.
So it fits. Yeah.
It fits. But then you got to start working backwards to figure out what's happening that's causing you not to accomplish that purpose. What's happening that's causing people not to feel like they can disagree with you or challenge your ideas. And you keep working your way back. And in some cases, we might find people, teams, leaders who just need to, hey, hold on, let's work on those things that are sabotaging our brain, that are enabling us or not enabling us to move forward and going back up to ultimately getting to the purpose and the success of the organization.
Yeah, well, I love the work that you do, because business is easy until you put the people in.
Right.
I mean, it really is, right? Like the P&L should work, whatever. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, I have imperfect people. We're all imperfect. And we're trying to accomplish this thing. We all have different attitudes and perceptions and whatever.
Yes.
And that's where it becomes more difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
The human element.
The human element. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. What a lovely conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. So you've been listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I've been talking today with Teresa Caro. She is with Liminal. You should definitely look up her information. And the book, is there a book that's been out for a while?
We are working on a book.
Okay. All right.
So there's a book around purpose, actually, that I'm writing with 2 co-authors. And then if you would like to learn more about me, theliminalist.com or LinkedIn. I have all sorts of content.
Nice.
I'd love to engage with people there.
Good. We'll put all that in the show notes and share everything across social. So thank you so much for joining us.